what happened? What can you say happened with Ben McAdoo? Obviously, the losses are one thing, but wasn't he just carrying down the message from the owner through Jerry Reese that was intended, which is Eli, you're sitting? Unless,
yeah, I think that's part of it, certainly, and I think over the years we've seen this with John Mara. They have largely, those owners have largely left the football decisions to the football people and empowered the football people to make those decisions, the general managers and the coaches that they've had there. I think one of the early bad signs was the week of the Beckham dog peeing thing, and I think Ben had made an effort to set a standard with his team by going at Eli after that Monday night and kind of trying to send the message to his team, nobody's above the standard here. And 6 days later, the dog peeing thing happens. And Ben came out after that game and said, well, I wish everybody would focus on the great catches he was making. 3 days later, John Mara is sitting Odell Beckham down. And the fact that he had to do that and that the head coach hadn't accomplished what needed to be accomplished there, I think was the first sign of real doom. And, we saw it again in this situation where John Mara had to come down and kind of massage the situation after all hell broke loose early last week. And I think it was just kind of, those are signs along the way that while Ben McAdoo is a good coach, he's maybe not the program leader that they needed there. And that's one of the things that gets lost sometimes, Rich. A lot of times you want to bring in a coach who can develop quarterbacks. You want to bring in a coach who can call an offense. And you forget that, these guys are really the CEO of the football operation. They're the guy who's in front of those 53 guys, and they're in charge of those 53 guys, and they're in charge of all of those coaches. And that's the biggest part of their job. And I think that's the part of the job where Ben really failed. And you can see it with his handling of Odell Beckham, and you can certainly see it with the way that the Eli Manning thing unfolded over the last week.
So who's next? Who do you think they're going to target?
Well, I think until we know who the general manager is, we may not have a clear idea of that. I certainly think that, you can look to the Patriots organization, because I know this. I know John Mara is going to place that call to Bill Belichick, and he's going to ask Bill Belichick what he thinks. And I would think Bill Belichick would vouch for both Nick Caserio and Josh McDaniels. And so I think the possibility of a package deal is there. I also think you could pair Josh with somebody like Scott Pioli in Atlanta, or even a Eric DaCosta, in Baltimore, who's been kind of a hands-off guy because everybody assumes he's just going to succeed Ozzie there. I think Eric would be somebody who could be in play because this is a Cadillac job. Maybe that'd be the job that he'd actually leave Baltimore for. And so I think you have to identify who the GM is going to be first. I think one thing that the Giants have to look at, too, here, and this is an important piece of it, is do we look at restructuring our organization? Forever there, it's been the head coach works for the GM. In fact, going all the way back, that's what caused friction between George Young and Bill Parcells. And so I think that they have to look at the idea maybe of dividing the power in a little bit of a different way, because that might be what it takes to get the right head coach. And if you look in certain situations, that is what it takes to get a great head coach. Dan Quinn was in demand 3 years ago, so the Falcons gave him power over the 53. Same thing with Adam Gase in Miami 2 years ago. And so I think not only do they have to look at these individual names for both those spots, I think they also have to look at how the football operation is set up. And so there's a lot of big decisions to make, and it's not just on which people are in charge. It's also on how do we want to set this whole thing up, because that could affect who's available to them.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.